안녕하세요. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동탄 왕코입니다. 햇살 느껴지시나요? 햇살? 제가 드디어 아침에 일어나기를 성공을 했습니다. 3일 만에 아침에 일어났어요. 죽을 뻔했습니다. 이번에도 8시에 알람을 맞춰놔서 9시까지 정장 1시간 동안 계속 알람을 연장을 했습니다. 정신력의 문제인 것 같아요. 이 혼자 스스로 아침에 일찍 일어나는 건 쉬운 게 아닌 것 같습니다. 그래서 아무튼 오늘 운동을 할 건데, 컨디션이 좋습니다. 나름 좋아요, 컨디션이. 날씨도 되게 좋은 것 같고, 또 춥겠죠, 오늘? 날씨가 이렇게 좋은 거 보니까. 그래서 오늘 팔굽혀펴기랑 스쿼트랑 윗몸 일으키기랑 3종 세트를 4세트 하는 걸 한번 해보겠습니다. 오랜만에 하네요. 오랜만에. 일단 지금 스트레칭을 하나도 안 한 상태에서 영상을 킨 거여서 스트레칭하고 팔굽혀펴기, 스쿼트, 윗몸 일으키기 3종 세트 하도록 하겠습니다. 스트레칭 한 5분에서 10분 정도 할게요. 역시 운동할 때 CNN이죠. 지금 미국도 애들 학교 문제로 지금 토론을 하고 있네요. 저희도 이제 곧 3월이면은 개학인데 당장 설날도 문제지. 일단 운동하도록 하겠습니다.
Those states, they're going to listen to you if they want the vaccine. They have to take care of the people who are going to be most at risk. They got to deal with minorities where they're being underserviced, and they got to let the teachers get a chance to not bring things back to their families when they're taking care of our own. Andy Slavitt, I wish you Godspeed and good luck. I'm always here for you to make the case to the American people.
Thank you, Chris.
All right. Look, you got to go through these things. I want my kid back in school. You want your kid back in school. It's a horror show having them at home. But if nothing changes and we send them back at school, is that the right move? Because these same people, the Democrats, were saying that you didn't have the infrastructure and the supports around the school to have them go back. So provide it. It's on Congress. Great. Let's see what happens and how long it takes. We'll be on it every damn day. At least 150 have been charged in the Trump insurrection. There are a lot more to go. Among them, again, the key part of the case against Trump is what do the people who did the worst things say about why they did it? Forget about what it means for them legally. Doesn't matter. I have a Texas man who called for the assassination of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Why? What you're going to hear from his lawyer will be key to the prosecution against Trump. Forget about the guy's legal case. It's not what we're here for. It's the political case against the president. We'll talk to the man's lawyer next.
What a shot. Wow, that came from nowhere.
In Japan, there are colors distinctly associated with 4 different seasons. These colors have been giving extra flares to Japanese food culture. Refined art tested by time. Japanese food enriches our lives. To know Japan, you have to taste it.
Thursday, a new CNN Global Town Hall. The race to vaccinate America. Dr. Anthony Fauci and top doctors from Biden's COVID-19 team join Anderson Cooper and Dr. Sanjay Gupta for coronavirus. Facts and fears. Thursday.
This is CNN 10. My name is Carl Azus. I'll be your explainer-in-chief.
Relevant stories, complex issues explained, all in 10 minutes. CNN 10, a virtual learning resource you can use at home. Stream at cnn.com/CNN10.
It's time for the perfect journey. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
I'm Melissa Bell in Paris, and this is CNN.
The interesting part of the case against the former president is that it's not really being made by the Democrats. Yeah, they're the prosecutors. But it's going to be made by his own supporters, specifically the ones who decided to attack our Capitol. The FBI has charged at least 150 people, and when you go through all the charging documents, you keep hearing the same thing. I did it because our democracy was under attack, like Trump told me. He said we had to fight. He had to say if we don't fight, we're going to lose our country. That's why I have lawyers on for some of them who did specific acts that will draw the attention and shock the conscience. You need to connect the dots. You need to show the case. And that's what we're going to do here, especially when you have someone like the so-called shaman guy, the guy in the horns, that fool. You have to see past the stupid outfit.
He loved Trump, every word. He listened to him. He felt like he was answering the call of our president.
If the political charge is, did you make these people believe this was the right thing to do? Exhibit A. When it's someone like the retired firefighter, who was known as a good guy, who then threw a fire extinguisher at a cop. Yes, get mad about what he did. Throw the book at him if you want. But why he did it matters for the political trial of Trump. Listen.
He's the commander-in-chief. They're telling him to fight and to stand up for your country and to do all these things and to protect the Constitution and all these things.
That brings us to our next exhibit. Garrett Miller. He said some scary stuff, including calling for the assassination of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. His case is instructive because while McCarthy and the other Trumplicans try to make it all about some magic word that Trump did or didn't say, like if he didn't say, I incite you on January 6th, then he's okay. Miller's case proves Trump was laying the groundwork long before the day of the riot. How do we know? Clint Broden, representing Miller. Counselor, welcome to primetime. Ordinarily, this would be a tough conversation if it was whether or not your client should be charged criminally. But this is about the political process and your understanding of his motivation. How does that apply to our understanding of the former president's influence on someone like your client?
Well, I think you're exactly right, Chris. I'm an attorney. I'm certainly not a psychologist. But when you have, and I've referred to him as a cult leader, Donald Trump was a cult leader. And you have somebody like Garrett Miller, who was not very politically involved, hadn't even voted much earlier in his life, loses his job, gets focused on the internet, and you have, as I said, a cult leader telling him that he needs to do X, Y, and Z to protect his country. And that's what cult leaders do. They prey on vulnerable people. And that's not to excuse what Garrett Miller did. As you said, his comments are vile, disgusting, what have you. But without going into attorney-client privilege, I'm having some discussions with him, and really we're trying to deprogram him. That's what cults do, and that's how you get people out of cults. violence.
Is he open to the suggestion that he fell for something with Trump, that he is under the sway of something that is irrational?
Yes, and as I said, I think that the more he gets removed from Trump being out of office now, the more he gets removed from the vitriol that goes on Facebook and Twitter, I think he is going back to the Garrett Miller that his family and friends remember, the one who raised money for his wrestling coach's wife's cancer drug.
He said on January 3rd he was driving across the country, he was going there, the dollar might collapse, civil war could start. I'm bringing a grappling hook and rope and a level 3 vest. That's a type of protective armor. Helmets, mouth guard, and a bump cap. The last time he came to the DC was for a pro-Trump rally. He had a lot of guns with him. What did he think he was going to do when he got there?
Well, I think he thought and was going to join the camaraderie of the Trump crowd, and as I said, be part of a bigger purpose, and that was what Trump was inviting him to. And I think he went along with the crowd and went in. And certainly not to excuse his actions. He didn't have firearms that day. Unlike others, he didn't breach to go past the rotunda, and that's certainly not to excuse it. But I think, again, it comes back to being part of that cult that was created by Donald Trump.
Look, I mean, I think the facts are bad. I think he's going to get a hard time, and I think he deserves it. Unless you can show that somehow he was suffering from diminished capacity, it's not going to be easy. But in terms of his relevance to the political process, this is most interesting to me. Not just that he did things because he thought Trump wanted him to, which he says again and again and again in a criminal complaint. I also left Washington and started back to Texas immediately after President Trump asked us to go home. He was that directly responsive. Do you believe that if he had heard Trump say, you should try to kill all of them, get them out of here, you think he would have?
I don't know that I would go that far. Luckily, we never got to the point, but you make an interesting point because it came out at the detention hearing. As soon as Mr. Miller heard that Trump told people to go home, he said, I needed to verify that. And once I verified that my president told me that, of course I left the Capitol building.
You think he would testify in open court or in a political process against Trump?
I think it's very important what he has to say, and he's made that point. He made that point in court yesterday. Again, not to help himself, but I think in order to help the nation, I think he'd be a very valuable witness at the congressional impeachment hearings and in court if that becomes necessary, and he's indicated his willingness to do so.
Clint Broden, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Again, it's not about what's going to happen with this guy. That's not my issue of interest right now. The process will take care of it. The political process, his own people could be strung together to make a case that defies any defense I have heard, politically. My next guest was a target of a domestic terror plot and accused Trump of trying to incite violence against her months ago, and he never said a damn thing to make it easier on Governor Whitmer of Michigan. Now she's with us, a call to take a stand against extremism, and the latest on what she needs to get her state well. Next.
Businesses are transforming, preparing for a future where innovation will change the way we live and work.
It's going to be, and it is, the most significant development in photovoltaics in 65 years.
It is an essential building block in providing clean and affordable drinking water.
Explore the future of business. Go to cnn.com/businessevolved in association with Vodafone Business.
When news happens anywhere in the world, CNN is there.
A CNN investigation into a peaceful protest turned deadly.
They heard an explosion. There was an exchange of gunfire.
Growing concern here, imports might be carrying the virus.
The pandemic's now robbing many of even a minimal income.
This family, $3 per month.
The country's always been changing, but it's never been as fast as it has been.
We're going to go see if he has anything to say.
Oh, no.
Poison around me.
retail and business banking department of an international bank in Cameroon. Nothing really prepared us for a crisis as hard as this one. So when it started, my greatest fear was that my teammates and my colleagues and the staff members find themselves hit by an emotional toll too heavy for them to bear. So we had to implement brutal changes to make sure people kept the feeling of being safe while working. So I had to make adjustments at the personal level as well, because not only people looked up to me as a manager to be able to find motivation to go through the situation themselves, but again, I had to go through it with a family that lives far apart from me here. I had to parent my kids through the phone and work through homeworks, sometimes late at night when I'm done from working. Now, my hopes for the future is that as the world reconstructs and recovers from the pandemics, that we as a collective unit build a more people-centered world, and that the quality of our overall decisions reflect the lessons we learned from this pandemic.
The journey to the top for a successful business in Africa starts with an idea. But how does a concept become a moneymaker? African and global industry leaders share their stories. On Profit Point in CNN Marketplace Africa, in association with Dangote.
I'm Anna Stewart in the City of London, and this is CNN.
200 million more doses. That's what President Biden is vowing to get us to vaccinate nearly all Americans by the end of summer or early fall. All Americans, very ambitious, a lot of moving parts. Part of the plan means buying more vaccines and increasing supply, therefore sent to states. But is that enough? And how will state governors ensure that it gets into your arm? Let's get some perspective from Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Governor Whitmer, thank you very much for joining us on Primetime.
Glad to be with you.
So you were on the call today with Biden's COVID coordinator, Jeff Zients. He announced a 16% increase in allocations for states. What was your level of trust? What did you think about competency? What do you think about that number?
Well, I thought it was a great conversation. I mean, obviously, governors all across the country want more. We want more vaccines. What we need the most, though, is predictability and communication and transparency. So this is a welcome change from where we've been. The fact that there is a plan to gives me a great peace. Of course, it's not as fast as we all want, but we're feeling better about where we are headed as a nation, that there's a national strategy that's going to help us as states get shots in arms and get people protected.
16% is not enough. Fair point?
It's not enough, but you know what? It is welcome information and change and trajectory, and I think that's what we're craving the most. It's been so sporadic and so little information.
마지막 하나만 더 하면 네 세트입니다.
Vaccines that were being held back, despite what the representations were from the last administration. This is a welcome change, transparency, and a plan to move forward.
Were they able to tell you when it will be more than 16?
Well, they said we're going to have 3 weeks where we can be confident what the numbers are. That helps us with our planning. And then they're hoping that it will continue to ramp up. And I believe that it will. I know that the administration announced that they're making purchases of vaccines. That is something that we were asking the last administration to do. And for some reason, they wouldn't do it. It is happening now. And I think that gives all of us great confidence and reason to feel hopeful.
So your numbers have been going up on the vaccine. You are now at about 67% of doses administered. 2 weeks ago, it was 45%. What makes the difference in efficiency?
Well, we've made incredible strides. I mean, we're working very closely with our local health departments and our hospital systems. Part of the issue is that in the long-term care setting, those vaccines are being administered directly by the pharmacies, and we don't control those. And that's where we've seen the numbers not quite keeping up with what we are doing as a state. But I think it is communication and the ability to plan. And so we will see our numbers continue to improve. We're 7th best in the country now. We're competitive. Lives are on the line. We're going to keep moving so that we can get everyone inoculated as fast as possible.
But the thing you need most is just the vaccine. You don't need manpower. You don't need logistical help. What are the wants?
The most important thing we need is the vaccine. We also know the administration has told us that they will fund the National Guard. That is something that was unknown under the last administration. They funded the Guard in some states, but not all. We are all going to have that benefit, and we're really utilizing our National Guard in terms of manpower on the ground. And so I think that's made a big difference here in Michigan, too.
Controversial issue. Some governors, like you, say, look, I learned from PPE. Let me go get this vaccine myself. Let me cut my own deals, and that way I can assure my flow. The Biden administration says no. Do you accept the answer, and why?
I do. The reason that we were working so hard to try to just purchase vaccines was because we weren't getting information out of the administration. We did not have confidence that they had bought the vaccines for the nation. They were not communicating, and they had not done the work. And we saw eventually that they came clean and said that they didn't have second doses that they'd been holding back, despite what the representations were. This administration is a very different situation. They're working with us. They're telling us what to expect. They're doing the planning. I have great faith in the national strategy that the Biden administration is working. And so I don't feel the need to say, let me go buy this, because I believe this administration is doing all the right things, and I'm grateful for it.
Do you reserve the right to sue if they do not give you what you need?
I believe that the Biden administration is going to deliver. I know that they are listening to the same experts that we've been listening to here in Michigan. We have some of the best numbers in the country right now in terms of pushing our COVID rates down because we've been following the science. And so this administration, I think, is going to show they know how to get this under control, get our economy back ramped up, get our kids back in school. And that's what we as a nation need more than anything.
Right-wing extremism. Is it better now that the election is over? What is your level of concern about infiltration of these groups into your officials?
Well, I think that this has been a serious issue, and we in Michigan saw it a lot earlier than the rest of the nation did. When it was happening at the nation's capital, those of us in Michigan, those who've been paying attention like you know, this started, the first time we saw this was here in this state 8 months prior. It ended up being, culminating in a plot to kidnap and murder me. This is a very real threat. This is domestic terrorism, and we all, every one of us who has a platform, needs to take a stand. This is unacceptable, and it is a very real threat that continues. It might not be as scary in this moment. We've seen a lot less of it recently. However, it is still there, and it is still something that we need to take seriously as a nation.
You worry about it in your ranks? About how it's penetrated into different agencies or people who work around or with you?
We are mindful of what the nation's lessons have been in the last couple of weeks in particular. We see that in the Republican Party in Michigan, there are leaders who were part of that demonstration and insurrection at the United States Capitol. And so this is something that's entrenched in certain parts of our society, and we need to root it out. It's unacceptable, and it's dangerous. It undermines the democracy, and that should come before any other allegiance.
Governor, thank you very much for your bravery. You're calm in the face of the threats that you have faced. And thank you for letting us know about the vaccine. You know that you always have this as a platform. Let us know if they're not giving you what they said you should get, so that we can pressure those in power to make sure they keep their word.
You got it. Thanks, Chris.
Be well, Governor.
Thank you. You too.
So Whitmer says that she has a new level of confidence. It's about what the administration does, but it's also about what our new leader says. For 4 long years, we had a president who sympathized with white nationalists. He denied systemic racism. That hurts when it is an obvious reality for so many. What did the new president have to say to help heal? This was the chance. You have to listen to what he said. Next.
Thursday, a new CNN Global Town Hall, the race to vaccinate America. Dr. Anthony Fauci and top doctors from Biden's COVID-19 team join Anderson Cooper and Dr. Sanjay Gupta for coronavirus, facts and fears. Thursday.
Across Africa, businesses are working together like never before. All new on CNN, Connecting Africa.
Join me, Eleni Jokas, as we crisscross the continent to show you how new connections between people, places, and projects are revolutionizing commerce in Africa.
All new Connecting Africa on CNN. In association with Frexim Bank.
오늘 여기까지만 하겠습니다. 아 힘들어.
In the midst of this pandemic, we realize that trafficking does not